Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
The moment I saw the name card, I felt my stomach twist. It was thick, ivory stock, the kind you'd expect at a senator's fundraiser. My name was written in elegant calligraphy, but underneath it, in a different, sharper pen, someone had scribbled, Marcus, father, by obligation. That hit harder than I ever expected. 19 years. I raised Riley on my own after her mom walked out when she was 5 months old. Diapers, night shifts, fevers, school pickups, scraped knees, part-time jobs, overtime hours, me, all me. And here I was, shoved into a linen-covered chair in a luxury venue on the edge of Lake Tahoe, surrounded by people who wouldn't be caught dead, driving the kind of truck I parked out back. Quick note, before listening, share in the comments which city or country you're watching from. And let's continue. The family table was loaded with strangers, polished suits, manicured hands, and subtle glances that told me I didn't belong. Some woman on the groom's side, maybe an aunt, gave a sideways look at my shoes and leaned in to whisper to her husband. They both chuckled. Across the table, some dude in a tech bro vest didn't even try to hide his smirk when I picked up the name card and stared at it too long. I felt like I'd stepped into a country club costume party, and no one told me it wasn't Halloween. A younger guy, 2 seats down, snorted. Guess they really had to include the janitor, he muttered, not knowing I could hear. I didn't say anything. I just stood up and pushed the chair back, slow and steady. I didn't need a scene. I didn't want to see who wrote it. I didn't want to play guessing games about how many of these smug faces thought I was a tag-along, some charity invite. I just wanted to get out. Riley stood across the room with her new in-laws. She looked stunning. White silk dress, hair done in soft waves, her smile easy and full. They were toasting something, laughing, like nothing in the world was wrong. And maybe nothing was. Maybe I really didn't belong there anymore. Maybe the chapter ended, and I just didn't turn the page. I turned around. Didn't even say goodbye. I didn't want to cry in front of these people. I didn't want to give them that win. That's when the music stopped. I heard the mic crackle. The room's chatter died like someone flipped a switch. I turned, and Riley was standing in the middle of the dance floor, heels off, holding her fiancé's hand. Not gently either. "I'm done," she said into the mic. Her voice didn't shake. "We're leaving." People laughed at first, like it was a joke. But it wasn't. She dropped his hand, stepped off the floor, and walked straight toward me. The DJ stood frozen, holding his laptop like it might explode. Her groom just stood there, blinking like someone slapped him awake. Riley grabbed my arm. "Let's go," she said. "We're not staying." I didn't move. "Riley, what the hell?" "I'll explain in the car." She led the way, dress dragging through flower petals and spilled champagne. We walked straight through that upscale venue, past confused guests and gossiping bridesmaids. No one stopped her. She didn't look back. Neither did I. We didn't say a word for the first 40 minutes. Just the sound of the road, Riley's bare feet tapping against the pedals, and her dress rustling every time she shifted. She still had her makeup on, perfect, barely smudged, but her jaw was tight, like she was clenching words in her teeth. The wedding playlist kept looping from her phone, still paired with the car speakers. I reached over and shut it off. Neither of us argued. She took the exit for Sacramento without needing directions. My place isn't fancy. 1-story busted fence, faded paint. But the mortgage is paid, and I've kept the lights on since she left for college. It's home. She parked on the curb and didn't move right away. Her hands were still on the wheel, gripping it like she was waiting for something to hit her. Finally, she let out a long breath and looked over. "I saw the card before you did," she said, eyes dead ahead. "Last night, at the rehearsal dinner. It was already on the table." I stared at her. "And you still let today happen?" "I had to be sure," she said. "I needed to see if they'd actually go through with it. They did." She reached into her small clutch purse and pulled out her phone. Unlocked it. No hesitation, no warning. "Watch." She held it up between us and hit play on a video. The audio was clear, Too clear. The groom's dad, Alan Drexler, was standing at the bar, tie loose, holding a glass of scotch. I mean, the guy's a glorified handyman, right? I've seen his house on Google Maps. It's barely above Section 8. Someone off camera laughed. Then the groom's mom piped up. Don't be mean. He's a janitor, not a handyman. Let's use his proper title. More laughter. Then the camera panned, and I saw Brent, her fiancé, standing there, grinning. Brent said, "Can't wait to see her face when she figures out she could have had her real dad walk her down the aisle. You know, the one who didn't mop floors for a living." The video cut off. My heart didn't. I leaned back in the seat, staring at the dark street outside. All I could think was, he knew. The whole damn family knew. And they smiled in my face anyway. Her real dad, I muttered. That bastard left before she even got teeth. Riley turned toward me, face blank, voice steady. I told them he was gone. I told them who raised me. They didn't care. Why didn't you tell me this before today? I asked. My voice cracked, and I hated that it did. I could have stayed home. She shook her head. Because this wasn't just about me, or you. It was about watching people for who they really are. I needed proof. I looked at her. So you married him just to catch them slipping? I didn't marry him. She opened the glove box and pulled out a folded manila envelope. She dropped it on my lap. Never signed the prenup. Had my own legal team review it, revise it, and send back a counter. They ignored it. So I never signed. It's invalid. I opened the envelope. Inside was a packet of paper, legal filings, notarized letters, timestamps, all in her name, all airtight. You had a lawyer? I've had a lawyer since February. Family counsel. Confidential. I shook my head. How long you been planning this? She looked at me. Really looked at me, like I'd asked something ridiculous. Since I started building something worth protecting. I frowned. What do you mean? She pulled her phone back out, tapped a few times, then turned the screen toward me again. This time it was a website, a clean, professional homepage with her face on it. Artera Biotech, predictive diagnostics for preventative care. That's your company? I'm co-founder. We're Series C now. Valuations around 80 million. I blinked. You never told me. She shrugged. Didn't want to jinx it. And I didn't want anyone thinking I got here because of them. I sat there, holding the phone like it might burn a hole through my palm. My daughter, who used to build robots out of toaster parts, was now the kind of person investors lined up to meet. And I had no idea. She tucked the phone away and said, "They thought they were marrying up." I turned to her. "And you let them think that." "Damn right I did." She opened the door and stepped out barefoot into the gravel. I followed. Inside the house, the air was thick with the smell of old leather and dust. She dropped her shoes by the door like she used to, walked straight to the kitchen, and pulled out 2 beers from the fridge like it was still her home. And just like that, I realized something. She never left. Riley slid one of the beers across the table toward me, then sat down and started peeling the label off hers like she was bored. But her eyes were sharp, focused, like a storm sitting just off the coastline, waiting for a reason. She took a sip, then reached down into her overnight bag and pulled out another manila folder, thicker this time, heavier. She dropped it in front of me. It hit the table with a dull slap. "Open it." I raised an eyebrow but did as she said. Inside were stock certificates, legal agreements, purchase records, everything stamped and signed. The first one was under the name Winterlight Holdings. The rest followed the same name. "What is this?" I asked. She leaned forward, resting her elbows on the table. "That's my trust. I've been buying into Drexler Medical Logistics since last year." I stared at her. "You bought stock in Brent's family business?" "No," she said. "I bought control." My mouth went dry. "How much?" 37%, as of last week. I looked back down at the documents. They were clean, traced through holding companies, some tied to Nevada, some Delaware. It was the kind of setup people with serious money use when they want to stay invisible. "That's how they didn't see you coming," I muttered. She nodded once. "They assumed I was just some biotech nerd who'd settle into their world and play along. They didn't realize I already had my own. I used dividend payouts from Artera, and the inheritance Grandma left me. You remember when I asked for help opening that trust account 2 years ago?" "Yeah. That's when it started." I pushed the papers back slightly and sat back. "You've been sitting on this through the engagement?" "I wasn't sitting," she said. "I was digging." She reached in her bag again and pulled out a black leather-bound folder, the kind executives carry into courtrooms. Inside were spreadsheets, red-marked documents, and internal emails. She laid them out, one by one, like puzzle pieces. "Here's their inventory discrepancy report. They claimed 20,000 in unit loss last quarter. It's closer to 70. Here's the vendor list. Look at this company, GenSync Supplies. Overcharging Drexler by 15%. And guess who owns it? Brent's uncle. Here's their FDA compliance report. Falsified. I had it re-audited through an independent agency." I stared down at the mess. I may not have gone to college, but I know when something smells bad. And this reeked of cover-ups and greed. She slid a document toward me. "They're not just stupid. They're reckless. And once this goes public, they'll be radioactive." I shook my head. "Riley, this is war." "Exactly." She pulled out 3 final documents. These were signed proxy agreements. 2 from minority shareholders, 1 from an independent board director named Ellen Carter. They've been holding around 12% between them. But they're tired of the Drexlers treating the company like their personal playground. I've been working on this for months. Ellen agreed to back me fully if I could reach quorum. I squinted. "So, with their support, I can call an emergency executive vote and win it. And what do you need me for?" That was when she took out one last paper. Shorter. Simple. A proxy authorization form. "I'm transferring my vote to you." I stared at her. "What?" "I'm still a stakeholder, but you'll hold the voting rights temporarily. Public optics. They can't say I'm just a pissed-off ex, but if they have to answer to you, they'll choke on it." She nodded. "Exactly. The man they called a janitor, a glorified handyman." I looked at the form. "Why me, Riley? You're the one who built this plan. You should finish it." "I will," she said. "But this part? This part's yours." She leaned in closer. "They insulted the man who kept the lights on with double shifts. The man who ate leftover spaghetti for lunch so I could buy robotics kits. They mocked him in their country club whispers. And now he's going to chair their board meeting." I didn't move. My hands were still on the table, but they were shaking. Not out of fear. Out of something older. Something I hadn't felt in years. Pride, maybe. Rage. Both. "You really want me sitting at that table?" "I want you at the head of it." "You sure about this?" She smiled, not like a daughter, but like a general handing off the final orders. "I've never been more sure of anything." I picked up the pen, and I signed. She closed the folder and slid it back into her bag like nothing earth-shaking just happened. "Meeting's Thursday," she said. "Be ready. Wear a real suit this time." "I don't have a real suit." "You will." She finished the rest of her beer and tossed the empty bottle into the sink with a clean clank. Then she headed to the spare bedroom like she still lived here. Like it was just another night back from college. I stayed in the kitchen, hands flat on the table, papers spread in front of me, realizing just how far she'd gone to protect me. Not with tears, not with hugs, with leverage. My little girl didn't need saving. She came back with a plan to burn the place down. Thursday morning, Riley tossed me a charcoal gray suit still wrapped in plastic. "Tailored. You'll thank me later," she said. It felt stiff, too clean. I'd never worn anything like it. I was used to canvas work pants and boots that could take a fall from a lift. But I put it on, buttoned it up, and laced the leather shoes she left by the door. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see a janitor. I saw someone they were going to regret underestimating. We walked into Drexler Medical's headquarters at 9:04 a.m., 4 minutes after the board meeting had started. Riley didn't knock. She pushed open the frosted glass doors like she owned the building. Inside the boardroom, everyone turned at once. 12 people, long mahogany table, crystal pitchers, notepads lined up like they were expecting a product launch, not a firing squad. Alan Drexler sat at the head of the table in a navy suit that probably cost more than my first car. He stood as soon as he saw us. "You're not allowed in here," he snapped. Riley didn't even blink. "Read the bylaws. This is a closed executive session." "I am an executive," she cut in, "as is my proxy." She pointed at me. He looked like he'd swallowed a thumbtack. "You're bluffing." Riley calmly opened her briefcase and pulled out a single document. "Filed Monday. Verified by the corporate secretary. You were copied." She laid it flat in front of him. "I saw the stamp from the state. Legal transfer of proxy authority. My name, bold at the top." Someone cleared their throat near the end of the table. One of the other board members, middle-aged woman, silver necklace, sharp eyes, flipped through a copy of her own agenda. "It's valid, Alan. I saw it come through." He sat down, jaw tight. Riley turned to the room. "I'd like to submit new business. Emergency item. Call for executive vote. Agenda item. Breach of compliance protocol, financial misconduct, and negligent governance." Half the table stiffened. Alan laughed once, sharp and bitter. "You think you can just walk in here and stage a coup?" Riley didn't raise her voice. "I don't think. I know." She stepped forward and opened her folder, passing out copies of the red flag documents like a teacher handing out pop quizzes. No fanfare, just facts. Vendor fraud through GenSync Supplies, tied to your brother. Overbilled by nearly $1.3 million over the last 4 quarters. Internal losses misstated in quarterly reports. Falsified FDA documentation submitted last October to secure warehouse expansion. One man started flipping pages. Another rubbed his temples. Someone whispered, "Jesus Christ." Alan snapped, "This is baseless." "Then prove it," Riley said. "Vote to audit." He stood again. "This company has been in our family for 50 years. We built it from nothing. You think you can just drop in and... Your legacy ended the second you started funneling fake invoices through shell vendors," she said. "You didn't build this. You gutted it." Alan's son, Brent, finally spoke. He hadn't said a word until now. His voice was soft. "Riley, come on. This doesn't have to get ugly." She turned her head, eyes cold. "You already made it ugly." The room went silent. Riley took a breath, then nodded toward me. "My proxy, Marcus Carter, is prepared to call the vote, along with shareholders Ellen Carter, Joseph Nunez, and Kimberly Rice." Ellen, sharp-eyed woman from earlier, raised her hand. "Confirmed." Joseph and Kimberly followed. That gave us 53%. Alan's face drained. He looked at his brother and his nephew. Both sat frozen. "I move to remove Alan Drexler, Walter Drexler, and Brent Drexler from executive authority effective immediately," Riley said. I stood up. "I second." Ellen took charge. "All in favor?" Hands rose. 5, 6, 7, 8. Enough. "Motion carries." Alan's voice cracked. "You can't do this." Riley leaned across the table, calm as ever. "You handed me your trust. I used it. You handed me your arrogance. I weaponized it." I watched as Alan collapsed back into his chair, stunned. Brent didn't move, just stared down at the table like maybe if he didn't look up, none of this was happening. Then Ellen stood. "Final order of business. Interim board chair appointment. Candidate, Marcus Carter." I didn't move. Riley nodded at me once. "Stand." I did. "Votes?" Ellen asked. Hands went up. Same 8. Motion passed. "Congratulations, Chair Carter." The room spun slightly, but I held it together. I didn't smile, didn't speak. I just nodded once and sat back down. Alan stood and stormed out. His brother followed. Brent hesitated. Riley looked him dead in the eyes. This was never about love. Brent blinked. What? She slung her bag over her shoulder. It was about legacy. Then we walked out. No victory parade, no applause. Just quiet heels against tile and a heavy door swinging shut behind us. Out in the lobby, Riley finally exhaled. Her shoulders dropped a little, just for a second. I didn't say anything. She looked at me and grinned. Nice suit. Nice takedown. We stepped outside into the sun. As we stepped out into the parking lot, I squinted up at the sky and thought, what the hell just happened? I had grease under my nails 3 weeks ago. Now I was board chair of a multi-million-dollar company I didn't even know I'd been walking toward. Riley popped the trunk and tossed in her briefcase like it was nothing. Like this was Tuesday. We climbed into the car and didn't speak for a minute. The engine purred. Air conditioning clicked on. I leaned back and stared out the window. You okay? She asked. Yeah, just trying to wrap my head around it. She laughed under her breath. I've been planning this for years. You just jumped in 3 days ago and handled it like a pro. I didn't feel like a pro. I felt like a guy who once changed his shirt in a gas station bathroom between shifts because he couldn't afford to be 5 minutes late. You know what I was thinking in there? I said, while they were all sitting around that table. I kept seeing myself back in the garage, wiping oil off my hands with a shop towel I'd used all week. Riley didn't interrupt. I'd do day shifts at the body shop, come home, heat up leftovers, then clock in for night janitor at the mall. That went on for years. I'd fall asleep standing up in the supply closet sometimes. I missed your second-grade recital because I got stuck cleaning puke off the food court tile. She reached over and rested her hand on mine for a second. Nothing soft about it, just solid. You did what you had to, she said. I nodded. I didn't even know if you noticed. She looked at me, her voice firm. I noticed everything. And I believed her. We pulled into the driveway a little after noon. The sun was brutal. I yanked off the blazer and hung it over my shoulder. Riley went straight to the kitchen, pulled out 2 glasses, and started filling them with lemonade like she hadn't just executed a hostile boardroom power play. I sat at the table again. Same chair from a few nights ago. Same house. Different world. She came over, handed me the drink, and slid another envelope onto the table. But this one was slimmer. Legal size. What now? I asked. This, she said, is the final paperwork for the trust transfer. It moves Drexler into a public equity fund with healthcare access clauses. We're keeping a majority stake under the nonprofit wing, but it locks out personal profiteering. You and I, she pulled out a pen, are final co-signers. I opened the folder. Read the title. Carter Health Equity Public Trust. It had both our names on it. Hers as founder, mine as interim chair. You sure you want to do this? I asked. Yeah. This wasn't about revenge, Dad. It was about flipping the system that tried to swallow us. I looked at her, and for a second, all I saw was the little girl in overalls who used to sit under the counter in the shop, eating crackers and watching me pull apart brake lines. You remember prom night? I asked. You were freaking out in your room because your dress zipper jammed, and I was outside fixing some stranger's radiator. She laughed. I was 15 minutes late and still made it to pictures. I didn't charge that guy a dime. Didn't even get his name. Just knew his car was smoking and his kid was crying in the back seat. I remember, she said. And I remember thinking, one day I'm going to fix things for him too. I blinked fast and looked down. She reached under the table, pulled out a small black garment bag, and unzipped it just enough to reveal the edge of another suit. Lighter gray, finer material, slim cut. That's for the next meeting. Custom fit. I tried to wave her off. I'm not going to live in suits, Riley. She stood behind me and set the bag on the back of my chair. You're not standing behind me anymore, she said. You're standing beside me. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. My throat locked up, and I felt my eyes go hot. I pressed a knuckle to the corner of my eye like I had something in it, even though we both knew I didn't. She didn't say anything else. She let me sit with it. A few minutes later, we sat side by side and signed the final trust paperwork. No lawyer, no notary. Just us and a witness over Zoom who barely said 3 words. When the final e-signature loaded and the transfer status blinked green, I leaned back and stared at the screen. It was done. We'd just handed off the Drexler empire to a trust that would prioritize medical access, compliance, and transparency. Stuff that actually meant something. And I didn't feel like I'd stolen something. I felt like we'd reclaimed it. 2 weeks later, the knock came just after 11. I was on the couch watching a rerun of some car restoration show, nursing a ginger ale and half asleep when I heard it. It wasn't loud, just firm. Too firm for a neighbor, too unsure for a cop. I opened the door in my sweatpants and a faded t-shirt. Brent stood there. His shirt was wrinkled, tie crooked, hair messier than I'd ever seen it. The guy looked like he hadn't slept right in days. Eyes bloodshot, jawline scruffy, hands twitchy like he didn't know what to do with them. "Mr. Carter," he started, voice low. "Please. I just need 5 minutes. I need to talk to Riley." I didn't move. I leaned my shoulder into the doorframe and crossed my arms. "You called me a prop," I said. "Now you're standing on my porch begging for mercy?" His face twisted. "It wasn't like that. I didn't mean it. I was drunk. I was trying to save face," I cut in. "That's all you ever did." He tried to speak again, but I stepped out onto the porch and pulled the door behind me, just enough to block his view into the house. "Let me guess," I said. "Your daddy's been frozen out. Board voted in an outsider. Family names circling the drain. Now you're here with your tail tucked, hoping Riley's got a patch kit." He dropped his head. "I didn't know she'd actually go through with it." "That's your problem," I said. "You never thought she could go through with anything. You thought she needed you." He looked up, eyes flicking toward the door. "Can I at least talk to her?" I didn't respond. Behind me, I heard soft footsteps on the hardwood. Riley's voice was calm. "It's okay." I stepped aside. She walked out barefoot in leggings and a hoodie, hair pulled back. No makeup, no performance. Brent took a half step forward, then stopped. She didn't go near him. She stayed by me, arms crossed. Her eyes were clear and sharp, not angry, but tired. The kind of tired that comes when you're done carrying other people's bullshit. "You don't get to spin this," she said. "Not here, not now." He nodded quickly. I know. I panicked. "My dad, he's blaming me. Says I should have stopped you. Says I embarrassed the family." "Your dad embarrassed himself," she said. "You just followed his lead." He swallowed hard. "I didn't sign off on that card, I swear. But you didn't speak up either. I thought it was a joke, a bad one, but—" Riley cut him off. "You laughed. You stood there and laughed while your mom called me the janitor's daughter, and your dad called mine a handyman charity case. You could have stopped it. You didn't." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a wrinkled piece of paper. "I wrote something. I know it won't fix anything, but—" "I don't want an apology," she said. "I want space." She pulled a white envelope from the front pocket of her hoodie and held it out. He didn't take it at first. "What is it?" he asked. "Cease and desist," she said. "It covers personal contact, professional involvement, and any attempt to interfere with the business transition." He stared at it like it was radioactive. "You're serving me?" he asked. "No," she said. "I'm protecting myself, and my company. This isn't personal. This is structural." He finally took the envelope, hands shaking. I thought we had something real." Riley tilted her head. "I did too. Until I realized the only thing real between us was your need to be rescued." He flinched. "You always needed someone to save you from yourself," she said. "I stopped applying for the job." He looked like he might cry, but no tears came. Just that stunned silence men get when they finally see the wreckage they helped build and realize no one's coming to help clear it. He backed down the porch steps slowly. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't try again. The letter hung at his side, limp in his fingers. He crossed the sidewalk, got into a silver car that looked way too expensive for someone who just got booted from his family's empire, and drove off without headlights. Like that would help him disappear. Riley didn't say anything until the taillights were gone. Then she turned and walked back inside. I followed. In the kitchen, she poured herself a glass of water. Her hand was steady. Her jaw was tight. "You good?" I asked. She nodded. He always talked like he was planning our future, but it was really just his. I leaned against the counter. "You did the right thing." She took a long sip. "I know. Want to talk about it?" "Nope." And that was that. She went to bed. I stayed in the kitchen for a while, just staring at the envelope Brent left behind. Not the one from her, his. The one he tried to hand her like a get-out-of-jail-free card. He'd folded it too many times, like he kept changing his mind about giving it to her. I tossed it in the trash, where it belonged. A week after Brent walked off my porch, Riley and I stood under a rented pop-up tent in the middle of Oak Ridge Park, 3 blocks from the duplex we used to live in, back when I had to stretch $30 for groceries and gas. The place was packed. Kids from the neighborhood, families with strollers, a few elderly folks from the assisted living home nearby. There was a big blue banner behind us that read, "Carter Health Access Fund, Affordable Care, Real Equity." Below it were 2 tables stacked with refurbished glucose monitors, blood pressure cuffs, and preloaded medical tablets with health literacy software. All paid for by Drexler's new nonprofit arm. Our arm. We'd taken the first payout from Q2 dividends, carved off a clean slice, and poured it straight into getting supplies to clinics in places like this, where people knew how to survive, but rarely got the tools to thrive. Riley stood at the mic first. She wore a white blouse, no blazer, her sleeves rolled up and sunglasses on her head like she belonged here. And she did. "Today's not about headlines or handouts," she said, her voice carrying across the park. "It's about closing gaps that should never have existed in the first place." People nodded. A few clapped. A couple teenagers by the basketball court stopped dribbling and listened. She kept it short. She always knew how to land clean. "And before any of this could happen," she continued, "there was someone who worked 3 shifts to keep the lights on. Someone who taught me that showing up matters more than any title." She turned toward me and pointed. "This is the man who made all of this possible." My stomach flipped. I wasn't built for this, but I stepped up anyway. The mic felt too small in my hand. My voice sounded too loud at first, then not loud enough. I cleared my throat. "I didn't know much about business," I said. "Still don't, to be honest. I can't run spreadsheets, and I definitely don't speak in acronyms." That got a few laughs. But I knew how to show up every day. I knew how to do what needed doing, and I guess that was enough to build something that matters. I kept it short and got the hell off the mic before I made it weird. People clapped, genuinely. Not the polite kind, the real kind. After the event, 3 teens, maybe 17, maybe younger, came up to me. One of them, a girl with a buzz cut and a hoodie that said, "Future Engineer," looked me dead in the eye and said, "I've never seen someone like me at a board table before." I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. Another kid asked if he could take a picture with me. I said sure, and he pulled out a beat-up Android that barely worked. Felt right. Later that afternoon, a local news crew from Channel 8 ran a segment called "Mechanic Dad Turns Corporate Chair." They spelled my name wrong in the graphic, but I didn't care. I watched the piece from the folding chair outside the rec center while Riley gave an interview. She looked calm, collected, professional, but not performative. She was herself, always had been. When the last table got packed up and the volunteers drove off, it was just the 2 of us left under the shade. Riley sat beside me, handed me a small white envelope and said nothing. I opened it. Inside was a single key and a folded deed. Property title, full transfer. It was addressed to both our names. I looked at her. "What's this?" "New house," she said. 3-bedroom, corner lot, short drive from here." My throat tightened. "Riley." "Not repayment," she said, cutting me off. Just an upgrade. For both of us. I looked down at the key again. It felt heavy, even though it wasn't. Are we moving? She shrugged. We don't have to. But it's there if we want it. I nodded, still trying to swallow around whatever was caught in my chest. We sat there a while longer, just listening to the wind and the occasional car pass. No rush, no big moment. Just two people who'd spent a long time building something from the ground up, finally getting to stand still for once. And it felt earned. 1 year later, I sat in the front row of a polished auditorium at UC Davis, wearing a dark tailored coat and shoes that actually matched. The stage lights were bright, casting a soft glare across the glass walls, and the rows of business students taking notes like their lives depended on it. Riley stood at the podium in a navy blazer, her hair pulled back. No flash, just authority. She didn't pace or overperform. She held the room with calm presence and clarity, same way she handled that boardroom. Same way she walked into the fire a year ago and didn't blink. Her keynote was called Strategic Patience, Winning by Watching. She talked about timing, leverage, controlling narrative, things I never had names for, but knew how to survive by instinct. The audience leaned in with every word, hanging on her like she invented the concept of waiting your turn to strike. Then someone during the Q&A stood up and asked, "Who influenced your approach the most when you were starting out?" She didn't hesitate. "I learned business from a man who never went to college," she said. "But he taught me cost, value, and return better than any textbook." Her hand lifted just slightly, and her eyes found me. The room clapped. Some of the students even turned around to get a look at me. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I just nodded, hands folded in my lap, still as stone. Afterward, I left through the side doors while Riley got swarmed by professors and program heads offering coffee and business cards. I figured she'd catch up. The valet stand outside was busy. Students with startup dreams handing off keys to Toyotas they hadn't washed in weeks. I walked past the guy working the stand, same kid who, a year ago at the wedding, had laughed at my rusted-out truck when I pulled up. He didn't recognize me now. Not in this coat, not in these shoes. He took one glance and said, "Nice ride, sir," like I belonged. I slipped him a 5 and said, "Thanks," without breaking stride. The town car was already idling by the curb. Riley was inside, finishing a bottle of water and scrolling through texts on her phone. She looked up as I climbed in. "You crushed it," I said. "I know," she replied. "But thanks." We pulled away from the curb and eased into campus traffic. Neither of us said much at first. Then I turned slightly in my seat, looked out the tinted window and said, "You didn't have to do all this." She didn't look at me when she answered. "You're right," she said. "I didn't. I wanted to." We passed the edge of campus, hit a red light at the intersection, and sat in silence. Then I saw it. A billboard across the road, sitting above the gas station we used to fill up at with quarters and dollar bills. Big white letters on a navy background. Integrity is inherited. Carter Health Equity Fund. No fancy design, just words. I leaned back in the seat and closed my eyes. Not revenge. Resolution. That's what it felt like. Would you have forgiven Brent if you were in Riley's shoes? Drop your answer in the comments. And if this story kept you hooked, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.